Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for being here today. Another live edition of another red edition of Node Investor. Appreciate everybody joining. Oop, got some reverb there. There we go. Man, oh man, what's going on here today? Hope everybody was in cash. Hope nobody's getting slaughtered, but judging by the comments, most everybody's getting smacked. It's the smackening. It's not the flippening, it's the smackening. But is this really a surprise? I mean, come on. We saw the bear flag forming over the last couple of days. There was no follow through on the bounce. It was ripe. It was ripe for a setup. If you missed my last video, actually, I know a lot of you didn't miss my last video, but judging from some of the very uninformed comments, which is the 1% of you, most of you guys are reasonable. There's always the 1%, the headline readers who totally missed the video and misread. So if you missed my last video, I'm going to recap and give you guys a quick synopsis of what I was talking about with regards to the July rally. But I also did an update on what I think is going to happen near term, what I was looking for, and that's it looks to be playing out that way. Am I buying yet? No, I am not. So I'm still in cash. So here's what we're looking at. And I'll show you guys some of the levels to be watching. And I'm getting more alert. Now, everybody's like so bearish and so everybody's like panicking here in this red day. And I'm actually more bullish now than I was a couple of days ago because it's starting to play out a little bit like we expected. So we saw the bear flag, we saw the breakdown, and then we saw another potential rising wedge forming here. This happened to start running into this big picture, long descending trend that has been the intermediate resistance line. You can see we just bounce right into all of that. And here we were going right back into it. Now, I've actually been following ETH a little bit more closely, and that's really what I was trading last week. And it hit the line here almost exactly. It hit a 618 retracement level, and we saw the rollover, and the sign started to show up with the divergence. The momentum really started to wane. And so what I was looking for was a bounce. If we didn't break, I mean, if we went higher, the level to really be watching, which obviously we didn't go higher, but the level to be watching was going into 7,000, 7,100. I didn't think we'd get much higher than that if it continued higher. We saw the break. And what I was looking for was a retest of these lows. And so there was two scenarios that I had outlined here that I've been watching out for. And that was a retest of the lows to either one, slightly undercut it or finish somewhere near those lows, and then potentially form a double bottom on that daily chart. That would set up a double bottom with a bullish divergence on the RSI. This would indicate some of this momentum to the downside is starting to wane. There's no confirmation of that yet, but you got to always kind of be looking ahead one step and thinking, what's the potential next scenario here? And you can do that a lot more clearly when you're in cash as opposed to when you're holding on and hoping and praying that things bounce, or vice versa if you're shorting and you're looking for some more downside. When you're in cash, things are just a little bit more objective and clearer from that perspective because you don't have a cognitive bias one way or the other. You're kind of just saying, all right, well, let's see what happens here. And so that's what I'm looking for here, is that potential double bottom on this daily chart with the bullish divergence RSI. So there's two scenarios that I'm looking at. Is one, we get this bottom, we see a strong reversal. That's going to be the initial trigger that I'm looking for, is a strong volume reversal on lower time frames. And then obviously it's going to need to retest this downtrend. And of course, the same resistance point is going to be the ultimate confirmation. If it gets above that, then that's confirmation that we put in a good intermediate low. Is that the end of the bear market? Absolutely not. We are way too early to tell that. And even if we had a relief rally, as they call it, we still have this bigger picture trend that is needing to be broken. And until prices get back above, the high 8,000 and honestly 9,000, there's going to be no way to tell. So it could just be another bounce. Scenario two, which I outlined in the video, was it yesterday? 2 days ago? Whatever. A couple of days ago, was for this break from, again, this bearish flag, this wedge, whatever we want to call it, a break, and then this would trigger the next leg down, which would end in a climactic washout low, similar to what we saw in February. And in that scenario, I'm looking for a sub 6K, but above 5K washout, and then the bounce, right? And generally, when you see this type of action, there is a very strong counter trend rally following one of these type of things. And again, to reiterate, just to be very clear, if we saw that, it depends on where the level is, but it wouldn't necessarily mark the end of the big picture bear market, but it would mark an intermediate low following this leg that we've seen. That could mark the end of that low, and then we could have a little bit of a rally. How much of a rally is anyone's guess? Is it going to be a 100% rally like we saw in February? Is it going to be a 50% rally like we saw in April? Or is there just going to be a little bit of a bounce, relief rally, and we'll go from there? And that's it. For those of you that are trading, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for those intermediate trends, because those are some very opportune times, small windows of time, but those are very opportune when you get those strong reversal trends from these oversold conditions that make for some nice trading, especially in the alts. And I'm favoring the alts here on a bounce because many of them are very washed out versus BTC, but they've not confirmed that they've hit a low yet. And so I did and I'm trying to save my voice here because I did a 2-hour live stream earlier with my group, and we went over a lot of counter trend strategies and looking at those names that have just been so washed out and so beaten up, and potential entries on a lot of those if and when there is a reversal. But until then, if you're buying just because it's oversold, it's still guesswork. I mean, you're kind of guessing. Now, odds favor we're going to get a bounce here at least, just because we're so oversold. But at the end of the day, unless you have some sort of triggers and some sort of strategy in place, it's very much a guesswork in terms of where the bottom is. Now, looking at the 1-hour chart, this is BTC on Coinbase here. Let me clear that. You can see the RSI on the 1-hour hit 11 earlier today. And we're starting to bounce here a little bit, making a little bit of a bear flag on this 1-hour, bouncing right into the 10 EMA on the 1-hour. And so ideally, what I'd like to see is another test to the downside, and then a move higher with the RSI again divergent on the 1-hour. And this would at least set up a little bit of a bounce into the 4-hour charts, which would be into around 6,400 or so is the next level to be watching. That prior support, which gave way, is now going to be resistance. And if we get a little bit of a bounce into that, you can see the moving average would likely meet in and around that zone. If you did just a strict Fibonacci retracement on the bounce, you can see that the 50%, which is not really a fib number, but it's a popular retracement level, 50% would be right there on that 6,400. First level would be 6,320, and then above that, which is where the 10 EMA currently lies, is around 6,475. And so right now, that's all I'm looking for. Now, what would change my mind would be a convincing high volume reversal off of the lows, short squeeze, all that fun stuff. That's not here yet. And so for now, if there's anything to do, I'm not doing anything yet. Like I said, I'm still in cash, but if there's anything to do, it would be a short-term bounce trade, and that's probably about it, looking until we get some confirmation. Let's take a quick look at the Ethereum side of things. And I was watching ETHUSD on Coinbase. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Here, let me do this. I'm staring right at it. There it is, sorry. And so this one here, if I go to the 4-hour chart, you can see this one came much closer. And I've been using this a little bit more of a proxy just because this was a stronger one to trade. And you can see we bounced into this trend line and almost hit it exactly just yesterday. And on this similar move, we came right into the 618 on that bounce, which also happened to line up with the trend line resistance. And we were also seeing this rising wedge pattern that was forming. And so there was just a confluence of resistance levels there. The odds favored. We were likely to go down. You can see if we zoom in a little bit, there was RSI starting to wane here as this thing was bouncing in that second run. And so, I mean, if you go to the hourly charts, before the breakdown yesterday, let me go back to BTC. We had something like 33 hours or 35 hours of just blah, nothing to do. Nothing to trade here. Let me go. Where's that at? Here, this guy. You can see from this bar to this bar, 34 hours of basically flat action. And that's assuming you had anything to do here. And we were flat before that. And that was news driven. And this was the hack. And this was news driven. And then before that, another 31 hours of just flat. And I mean, you look at the entire move, right? It's just been 3 days of really nothing to do. Just, it was kind of setting up. Momentum was waning. You could see that showing up here. And so it was due for a little bit of a pullback. And I posted a tweet yesterday saying the bulls are running out of time here. If they're going to do anything, it's got to happen soon, because the technicals were certainly leaning against them. And it didn't take much. We saw the news. We saw some momentum pick up. Stops are triggered, and that's usually the way it goes. And it goes to the downside. Now, it would have been a good short trade, but I wasn't on the trade. So it just highlights the importance of some of these trend lines. They act as support, and once they give way, this was a multiple support zone here, the trend line, and then finally the horizontal price support. Once that gave way, look how fast that accelerated. And it looks very reminiscent of this move that we saw a couple of weeks back here, where this trend line was acting as support. And once that gave way, it was a very quick move to the downside. So seeing that again, seen it a couple of times now, but, and this is where people misunderstood me, I believe, in my last video, is I think we're due. I think we're due for a counter trend rally. Now, I'm not picking a bottom. I'm going to wait. You got to always just wait. Let the market tell you what it's going to do next, and let it be ready. But following this move that we just saw, which now we are down 37% in the last 6 weeks or so, I expect we're going to see a little bit of a relief rally. How strong that rally is anyone's guess. At what price point the rally starts is anyone's guess. It could have that washout low. Maybe it starts at 5,000. Maybe it starts at 54, maybe 58. Maybe it starts here, right? That's anyone's guess. But from a time perspective, I think we're getting close. And that's why I said in my last video, my clickbait thumbnail was, is July setting up for a rally? And I think it is, because of this. I think we're going to see a little bit of a washout low in this period here going into next month, and then we'll have a rally. Where does the rally start? From what point? That's anyone's guess, guys. And so from a trading perspective, that's what I'm looking for. From a long-term HODL investment perspective, there is no confirmation whatsoever that the bear market is over. I hate to say it that way, guys, but even though this bear market has brought BTC prices down 53% year to date, 14% in June, down 19% in May, just because of that doesn't mean it's necessarily over. So from a HODL perspective, it's still very risky here to assume that the bottom's in. And I think from the sentiment perspective, most people are in that camp now. I mean, in fact, I think it's swung the other way, and everyone's now accepted that the bear is here to stay for 2 years, and prices are going to 3,000 or 1,000. You guys know where I stand. I'm not in that camp either. I'm not taking that extreme of a point of view. I'm a little bit more bullish than that. Looking at the total market cap, we are sub $300 billion. At one point, we were about what did we hit today? 254 or something like that, 258. So still bleeding off. And I'm going to be sending a newsletter out later today talking about valuations, because we're seeing the big valuation reset, right? I mean, if you look at something like a Cardano that went from, where was it here? Let me show the market cap. Cardano market cap at one point was over $30 billion, $33 billion for just Cardano at the height of the mania in January. And we're now down to $3.7 billion. So talk about a valuation reset. And many other names have been hit much more than that. And so depending on obviously how high they got here in the peak, but Cardano was one of those extreme names where everyone's like, wow, is this thing really worth $33 billion? And so we've had this valuation reset. And the thing with cryptocurrencies, when you're a long-term investor, a hodler in this market, you hear two schools of thought when it comes to investing, right? You hear you got to take the long-term approach, the 5-year view. Don't look at the prices, ignore what the prices are saying. And I respectfully, but completely disagree with that school of thought. There is only one or two names that I would take that point of view with. Bitcoin, maybe Ethereum, right? And that's it. And that's because you have to treat even the names that I really like, all the other names, some of these platforms that are really strong, you have to treat them very much like a speculative startup investment. Meaning, you look at something like, let's just pick a random name here, right? Something like Substratum. Okay, it's worth on the market cap, almost $90 million. A large portion of that $90 million is speculative value, and that's it. Very little bit of that $90 million is based on any kind of fundamental valuation, any kind of network value, any kind of, it's not a business. They don't have a balance sheet or a profit loss statement, right? And so, and all crypto assets are that way. They just are heavily weighted towards the speculative valuation side. So if you look at a chart, 80% of the pie is going to be value speculation on these things. And that's okay, because when the sentiment changes and the market grows, that speculation grows significantly. But you just have to keep that in mind, that the possibility of many of these names not being around in 5 to 10 years is very high. And so when people say take the long-term view, that's a bad point of view for most of these names. Not all of them, but most of them. I mean, think about it. For those of you guys that are around for more than just the last year, remember Feathercoin? Remember, it's still 27 million, which is really high in my opinion. But remember Peercoin? I mean, not that they were horrible projects. It's just they have more competition came around. There was more names that showed up. Namecoin, remember all of those guys that they were great to trade back in the day, but now it's like they're not around anymore and they're not contenders anymore. And so anyway, that's my rant, guys. Valuation. I'll be posting a little bit of a newsletter on that later, but one or two names maybe that I would hodl long-term 5-year plan. Everything else is subject to review very so often, right? Just to make sure that, hey, if you get a 10 bagger, if you get a 100 bagger, then why not bank some of that? Part of that, maybe. And I get it. Everybody has their own reasons, and there's tax implications and all that fun stuff. But I bet you 99% of you guys, if you had the opportunity to sell at $19,000 Bitcoin and take the tax hit, you would rather take the tax hit on the profits at 19,000 than you would sit through a 60-70% correction. I bet most of you guys would do that. And that's just the way it goes. So, all right. So sorry to be so bearish. I don't think crypto is done. I'm actually quite bullish in the space, and even more bullish now that we've had the valuation reset. We're down to sub $300 billion. Bitcoin has come off. I have friends who are generally not interested in the space, and I met with a friend the other day, and they were like, hey, I heard in the news that Bitcoin was crashing again, and it's bad. It's like, it's gotten so bad that it's making the news again, but for all the bad reasons, which is a little bit of a contrarian indicator, to be honest with you. And I think we tend to see that at the extremes, right? I mean, the headlines, and just like we saw back here where Bitcoin was making new highs every week, it was in the news every single day. Now we're back in the news again. It's so bearish. Bitcoin's going to zero. It's the end of the world. But if you're trading, it's not been all that bad. And admittedly, this month has been kind of a boring trading month, to be honest with you. I mean, took a few trades, and the account is slightly up, which in this market, if you're even flat, you're doing good. But it was not exciting trading per se. But I'm paying attention now. I'm getting ready. Now that we've had this move, now that we've seen this second leg down, this retest of this 6K zone, I'm paying attention. Now I'm starting to gear up. Unfortunately, I'm going on vacation. I'm going to be gone for a week, but and I'm going to do my best to not watch the charts every second of the day. So I'm going to enjoy some of the relaxation. We all got to do that from time to time. So let's take a look at some other names here. So I talked to BTC. Another name I've been talking about here is Binance Coin, and that's been a popular name here as of late, and for right reasons, right? It's held up relatively well. And let me clear some of my notes. I was sharing that with the group earlier, but there's a couple of things to watch here, right? This is Binance on the Tether side. And full disclosure, I don't have a position here on this. So this has been in an uptrend, been one of the few names that has been bucking the trend. And then I mentioned, hey, we're starting to see some divergence down here. This may be due for a pause or even a pullback. The good news is so far it's been a pause. And so you can see here since early June, it's just been sitting in this tight consolidation here near this most recent high on the dollar pair. If you go to the BTC pair, the Binance coin is also still very close to the all-time high prices, right? And so it's been sitting tight here versus BTC. Now, what I'm watching here on the Tether pair is a potential breakout, right? This is a setup for a breakout. Hasn't broken out yet, so there's nothing to do, but this is a potential setup for a breakout above this mid $17 range. And above $17, which was this prior resistance here, you've got a few days of action here, but this is basically wide open space. And so the next major resistance above that is going to be over $22. And so from a breakout point, you know, you're talking a good 25 to 30% move just to get to these prior highs. Now on the BTC pair, right, you'd be at all-time highs there, so there's no overhead resistance. And so this is one I'm definitely watching. It's one of the few names that has held up much better than most. In the intermediate side of things, there's another trend that I'm keeping an eye on here, and it's much tighter, and that's this line here. And so it's kind of holding up in this pattern right here, so it's getting pretty narrow, and I'm just keeping an eye for a little bit of a reversal signal. We had this big volume move the other day on some news. It's kind of given up that whole move, and I very rarely trust any kind of news-driven pumps just because this tends to happen, right? They tend to fade them, especially in bear markets. In bull markets, the slightest little rumor can pump a name up huge, but in bear markets, they don't tend to last as good. So, but this is definitely one to be watching here. It's trying to find some support along this lower trend line. And so that's the one of the few names holding up better than most. What else would I going to cover? Let's look at some of the other names here. So here we go. So I covered ETH, covered Bitcoin. I did my rant on valuations and long-term hodls. Litecoin. Looking at Litecoin on the dollar, and Litecoin has been the weaker of the big three, as we call it. I don't even know if it's really one of the big three anymore, but Litecoin, you know, has just been sitting flat here on the dollar. Could not rally. Has been underperforming ETH and BTC, and so we saw this. But and it was a session I covered earlier today from a counter trend strategy perspective. If you're looking for those counter trend bounce plays, those names that have been the most beaten up tend to, in the initial stages of a recovery, tend to have the strongest bounces off the lows. And so that's one I'm keeping an eye on from that perspective, but definitely not the stronger of the bunch here from a relative strength perspective. You can see there is a slight bullish divergence, but not much. So that's Litecoin. Man, we're pretty stretched here to the downside. Volume on that was pretty big. You can see from just the 10 EMA on the 4-hour, we're down 5%. From the daily, yikes, down 11% right now from the 10 EMA. So just the smacking has been showing up in most names, man. I mean, we go back to the market cap here. Double digits losses, 9%, 7%, 5%. Most of the smaller mid-cap names absolutely in the double-digit range. 15% down, 10%, 16%. Game.com up 49%. But other than that, it's a red across the board, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, except for Tether. You know, Tether's up. All right. Let's keep going through some of these other names. I'm going to try to keep the stream a little bit short today, but I will certainly open it up to some names that you guys want to cover here. Let me see if I had any other names that were popping, that were happening here. Let me go here real quick. Anything else? Let me see here. What's on the move? Dat. What is dat? What is that? Binance. We covered Binance. Z Classic. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else happening there. Let's see what we got here. Yeah. This one's gone. Z Classic, is that still a thing? Look at how tight this pattern is getting. My goodness. All right. Neo. Let's look at the Neo, man. Neo dollar getting smacked down. This one's so stretched to the downside too here. Where are we at? $33, $34 Neo. Down 13%, or down 14% from the 10 EMA on that daily chart here. Once it broke that support, just continues to drift lower here. Broke the April lows. Many of the other names have not yet, but Neo has certainly been hit much harder. Let's see Neo BTC here. How's that look? Neo BTC on the daily, RSI is at 24. And man, I'm seeing this more and more, which is leading me to believe that the rise in the Bitcoin dominance number may be pausing here soon. How much higher does it go? I don't know. Maybe 45 is where it peaks out at, but we were at 41 almost earlier today. And just from seeing some of these other names get so beat up, I think we're getting close, at least versus BTC. Now, BTC could continue lower, and that'll bring these guys down further. But versus Bitcoin, some of these names, I mean, if you look at just from the this one peaked before May, but from that high, the May high, if you want to call it that, Neo is down 43% versus Bitcoin. And Bitcoin went down even further, so you do the math, and this one has been washed out here. Cardano, we just talked about that one, but that's another one that has similar price action here. Not quite as oversold and held the April lows, but still definitely getting in this oversold condition versus BTC. If you go from the May highs here, you can see this guy also down 43% versus Bitcoin on that comparative. And on the Tether pair, much uglier, obviously. So if you go from the May high there, down 62% in the last 6 weeks. Ouch. Quite the smackdown there on Cardano. EOS. Look at EOS. Now, we know EOS has had some news and controversy and all that fun stuff here. But, this whole block thing, the mainnet going live and the block producers and the vote, that's all in the past now. So you're seeing a little bit of sell-off. I mean, this sell-off was on after the news there, and you're seeing some more selling off here. So just kind of keep in sync with the rest of the market at this point. Let me clear that here for you guys. But going to this, Scale has a little bit more room to go on that RSI if it needs to. From a price perspective, it's right back here to this little base. You can see it's trying to hold that price zone support, but there's nothing to indicate that it's done going down yet. If it continues lower, the next zone to be looking at is right around that $7 mark on EOS, and that's quite the move down already from its most recent peaks here, or I guess all-time peaks here around $21, $22. So still on the downtrend here. Hasn't come down quite as much as some of these others. Let's see here. What were some of the other ones? Somebody asked me about BQX the other day, and that's one I've been keeping an eye on here. 2 things to watch on BQX. Ethos. It's basically retraced right back to this little consolidation high here. So this was the prior breakout point. You can see we've basically pulled right back. Prices are just undercutting that now. And so this is a zone to be watching for potential support to hold, maybe even just a bounce off of that. You can see on the 4-hour, it's very oversold. And we are seeing some slight bullish divergence here on this steep decline here. You can see the RSI, which is a momentum indicator, which is a leading indicator because it starts to bottom first. Momentum bottoms first before price and reverses. And so seeing that there, potential break of that downtrend, but pretty oversold here near term. Let's see here. We did EOS, BNB. We did Neo. We did Litecoin. Oh, IOTA. IOTA. You can't analyze crypto. I've seen too many people try and fail. Well, you can certainly trade it using technical analysis very successfully. I've seen many people try and succeed. So looking at IOTA, this is IOTA BTC, and there's a very clear overhead resistance line, but like a lot of these names here, guys, and pay attention to this, both at the tops and at the bottoms, because this is what tends to happen. You get the trend, the grind, and then towards the tail end of that, the trajectory accelerates and it ends kind of in a parabolic fashion. Same thing happens at the top, right? You get the grind higher, then people get all excited and it goes boom, and then it's done. And so you're starting to see a lot of that type of action here in a lot of these names. So when you see that straight down move on high volume and RSIs hitting these extreme levels, it's not necessarily a buy signal, but it starts to tell you that, hey, this is probably getting close to exhausting the sellers. At minimum, it's going to pause on the downside, either go sideways or have a little bit of a relief rally bounce, right? And I'm just seeing that in a lot of these names, and IOTA has been hit pretty hard here. How's IOTA look on the USD side? Yeah, same thing. Look at that. Just fell off a cliff there on the USD side, and sub $1 again. Back to $1 IOTA. You can see this on RSI down to 23 on the 4 hour. What's it at on the daily here? Sub 30 on the daily. And the lows here in April, I mean, that's really the key support zone to be watching, around that 92, 93 cent zone. But IOTA back to it here. And this is a level that's tested a couple of times here. You can see that those prior highs here before the breakout. We've tested it in April, and now we're testing it again here. Anybody liking IOTA these days? Remember when IOTA was like just so popular? Enigma. All right, let's see here. I'm going to pick through a few more names here. OMG, yeah, let's take a look at that guy. I covered this one in the last live stream, and OMG has been one of those names that has been kind of sitting flat here, not going down anymore versus BTC. And it's, look at this. I mean, for the better part of almost a month now, it's just stopped and it's holding this key support zone. You can say that's a little bit of a bullish reversal candle on that daily bar. It still has 4 hours left to go, so it depends on how it finishes. But that's not a bad early signal that maybe this one's ready to bounce here a little bit. On the 4 hour charts, some good volume coming in there. And so this one's, relative strength speaking, this one's holding up better than most versus BTC. Now on the USD side, obviously it's not going to be as pretty because it's going flat versus Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's going down. But you can see here, this one's trying to reverse off the lows here. Let's go to the 1 hour chart here, most recent action. It's trying here, so it seems to have found a little bit of a good low around that $8 zone. But on the way up, near-term resistance is going to be about that 880, 890 zone. That's a pretty clear level that was broken, so could just be a bounce into that. Ultimately, that's the level that needs to be cleared from a dollar perspective to kind of materialize any sort of significant bounce. It could just bounce right into that and then see another leg down. Oh yeah, Ethereum Classic. Another one that was pretty hot here the last few days. One of the few names. This one, basic attention. We'll go through a few of those other names, but man, Ethereum Classic has just been on a little bit of an upswing here. If you look at the USD side, let me find it here. I forget, when are they adding this thing to Coinbase? I'm pretty sure I have some. I was holding some Ether during the fork. So let's see here. Yeah, that's a big volume reversal, big break on that 4 hour on the dollar side. So I think it's run its course in the near term, needs to set up a new resistance, a new base here, because it bounced basically right into this resistance zone. See the rally here, and this one too had a similar trajectory, right, where You know, it was marching higher, marching higher, marching higher. And you can see towards the tail end, it got pretty exciting and really started to accelerate. And that marked the end of the move. You can see the slight RSI peak there. And here we are going down. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean it just goes straight down and that's it. I mean, it could just set up a new base here, but at that point, you got to wait. You got to wait to see what it does next. VeChain, thank you for reminding me. I wanted to cover this one because this one has been setting up a little bit of a longer trend here. Let's see how it looks on Binance. Yeah, it's still holding the line there. And so on VeChain, you've got this little bit of a rising trend, and it's been testing it here a few times. So we got to still wait to see this thing hold. But right now, it seems to be bouncing off of this trend. VeChain has some, some stuff happening with Thor and some news, but still got to watch this. A break above this most recent trend here, or close above these recent highs, which is that trend at let's call it 499 or so, 500. That'd be the level to be watching here for some near-term confirmation that we're going to see some bounce here, but still holding up. And this is another name that, relatively speaking, compared to most of these others, has held up a little bit better. So it's definitely one on the list here. Basic Attention has been getting some attention. Okay, that was bad. But Basic Attention token has been being talked about. Even Tim Ferriss was talking about it. You guys know who Tim Ferriss is, and he's a interesting fellow. Wrote a couple books, which I have read, and he's an angel investor and among other things. But you can see this one had a nice little rally early on, then set up a little secondary entry point here and had that breakout, and is still holding up relatively well. So that's not too bad here. And you're seeing a little bit of a pullback, but it's being supported. I mean, this gave up almost a whole move earlier today, and it's bounced right back. So be interesting to see how this finishes. But right now, even though that's a red candle, that's a support bar. I mean, it came right back to the moving average, right back to the breakout point, and it's bouncing off of it on some strong volume. And so it finishes in the upper half of that candle. That's actually positive. It's a support candle there on the way up. So that's looking pretty decent here. What was some of the others that were on the list here? And that's it. It's the only names that are strong. Okay. What else did we say here? I don't want to cover these. Most of these are crap coins. BNB, we talked BNB. Wax. I was talking about Wax being at the lows here. Maybe bouncing. Hit this long time level here of support. So I want to keep an eye on for a potential counter trend move. Let's keep going. What are the ones you guys want to look at here? ICX. So ICX back down to the April lows here, holding that support for now, but you guys know, or we've been looking at this one here, and it's just continuing to make this bounce series of lower lows and lower highs, and until that changes, it's not looking very strong. I mean, maybe you get another dip and finally get a little bit of a divergence, but you're not even seeing that yet on ICX. On the 4-hour chart, it's just the best thing right now is it's got this potential double bottom that it's trying to hold. And yeah, there's a slight bullish divergence there, but for now, not a whole lot to do there. Should we short BTC? Well, I think you guys missed the boat on that one. Maybe some short-term ones, but it's always so asking to short Bitcoin after it's down 40% in 6 weeks is basically like saying, should I go long on margin after it's up 40% in 6 weeks and RSI is at the highs, right? I mean, you could, and it could still have that washout low I'm talking about, but from a risk reward perspective, the risk is just so much higher at this point for taking the short side. I mean, maybe from a short-term perspective, right? It's like you're seeing these little bear flags set up. Yeah, these little moves here could give you a short-term short opportunity on another leg down. But, I mean, at that point, you're talking, what, maybe a few percents, which, hey, it just depends on your time frame. Some people trade on, 15-minute bars. Other people trade on hourlies or 4 hours. So it just depends. But generally speaking, I I would be much more cautious about shorting after such a big pullback than shorting at the top or a bounce into these, right? These areas are short, right? When you see these wedges higher into resistance points, then you short there, and your stop loss is relatively tight because if it breaks higher, you just get out of the way. Quantum. Quantum. Let me clear that line here. Old line. Yeah, this one is just so oversold here too. Look at on the daily rates, 24-hour side. Look at how stretched some of these moving averages are getting, and it just tells me that maybe it's getting close here in the near term, at least for a little bit of a bounce trade, some pause, at least sideways action on the downside. But I'd be waiting until we get a little bit more confirmation on some of these. But I'm looking at a lot of names that are setting up like this that are ripe for a little bit of a counter trend rally here. So even though things are looking pretty bearish, I'm gearing up. I'm getting ready for some trading. I haven't done a whole lot of trading in the last week, but I'm starting to get ready here. Quantstamp's another one. Look at how beat up this guy has been here on this daily. Just, yeesh. And I know this had some news too with the source code or the software that they were using in terms of auditing and smart contracts, but that's a smackdown. Down 50% in 18 days. I'm bullish on being bearish. Let's see here. $50 Litecoin. Maybe. Did we cover Cardano? We did. We covered Cardano. Tron. Let me look at Tron. With Tron Bitcoin. Let me clear some of these old lines here. Tron. I haven't looked at this since I traded. I traded this one earlier. Was it last week or this week? The 20th, the 19th. Wow. That was Tuesday. Feels like so long ago. But yeah, this offered obviously a quick little trade here earlier in the week. You saw that just a quick 14% pump, and that was really it. But from a longer term perspective, taking a look at the 4-hour, this one has shown some signs that it's finding a low here, right? I mean, look at most of the other names are still making new lows, and this one's starting to make a series of higher lows. And so it is showing some positive action here from a relative strength perspective. You can see the trend, the downtrend has clearly been broken here on this guy, right? And now it's just a question, was that it? Is that the end of the bounce, or are we going lower here? So I'd be watching this downtrend that's been forming here as a potential support zone. Or not this downtrend, excuse me, this rising trend on the low side here. Let me clear that. So that little zone there, if it continues to drift lower, see if it holds that, because that would also align with a little bit of this breakout zone there. So that's what I'd be looking for on Tron if it continues lower, but it needs to bounce off that and show some stronger volume on that move. For now, the best thing is it's maybe turned the corner. Oh, let's see here. It's funny watching the comments and watching Twitter, right? Like the sentiment is very clear with the markets. I mean, it's just people are, and understandably so, right? I get the, especially if you've been holding or if your trading has been tough in the last couple of months, I get it. But people are just so, what do you call it? So negative here in the last couple of weeks. You can see it all over Twitter. Not just me too. Some of the other people are just like the comments and some of the other channels, and the industry sentiment, right, is really turned the corner. Everyone's finally waking up and saying, where the hell is my Lambo? I get it. I don't want to joke about it, but come on, guys. Come on. Got to take it a little lightly here. Look on the bright side. There's strong support at 1,000. Strong support. So I'll go into this weekly chart here. people always ask me what's my thoughts, how far low do we go if it continues lower, and I'm looking at this zone here, right? And I've talked about it in the last live stream, the 5,000 to 4,800 little zone if it continues lower, which I think it will personally, just because we finally broke below and we made a new closing low, and it was kind of like, okay, that's it, right? That was the signal. But I'm not in the camp of 3,000 BTC or even 1,000 or 2,000, right? And everyone's entitled to their opinion. At the end of the day, especially from a trading perspective, it's honestly not going to really matter because whether it stops here or here or here, right? I'm going to wait and take the signals as they come. But just from so many different valuation perspectives, from the cost of mining, from some retracement analysis, some of that, that's where I'm looking at a stop near term. Now, what would change that is, if it's a quick smackdown and then we just kind of just do one of these later, and the 2-year bear market scenario then could take it under 5. But right now, I'm not in that camp. And if you are, that's fine. I mean, if you end up buying a ton of BTC at $1,000, awesome. All right. There's not much utility, and people can still live without crypto. Absolutely. And that's the biggest thing, right? Is crypto has come a long way from where we were just this time last year, right? I mean, this time last year, it was we didn't have hardly any the attention that we have now, right? What was the market cap this time last year? Like $100 billion is what we hit. Oh, I'm already here. So I remember I did a contest. I gave away some Litecoin when we hit $1 billion, 100 million, 100 billion dollars. And I believe it was like early June when that happened. And so, yeah, we still, I mean, from that perspective, right? You look at where we were just a year ago. Were we sub 100? Maybe we were still. Wow. Or we had just come off sub 100. Let me find that. Market cap peak there at 60s. When did it hit 100? Thought it did, but either way. From that valuation perspective, right, we obviously, if you bought last summer, you're still way up, right? You're still 6x or 5x, but obviously most people, and that's just human nature, right? We're buying towards the tail end here and really getting heavy, and so now they're probably net down. But you're right, from a valuation or from a utility perspective, and even smart contracts and all that stuff, still a very immature industry and just not a lot of real use case. And the first real big industry to adopt it, in my opinion, it's not going to be consumer payments or point of sale transactions or anything like that. The big, in my opinion, the big industry to adopt is going to be enterprise, right? When you look at supply chain, when you look at things where blockchain makes sense to use it in, that'll make sense where we start using it there. From a payments perspective, it's going to be an uphill battle, right? There was some good tries. Remember 10x and some of those token cards, but I think the regulation and some of that whole environment has just put a squash to some of those projects. And you've seen it in the chart here. I mean, they just continue to make new lows here. And I really like the idea, right, of kind of converting and having a multi-coin wallet and doing all that stuff. But user adoption is just not there yet. The real world use is just not there. Bullish on VeChain, I am. And that's, that's one of the few names that are strong supply chain names here. And heck, some of these projects are still just white papers, right? I mean, let's be honest. A lot of these ICOs raise a ton of money, and there's not a whole lot there. Which is why, guys, I say I'm not really in the long-term hodl mode, right? Where it's like buy and forget about it for 5 years, because a lot of these may just never be around for 5 years, right? Or they will, but they're going to remain like at the bottom of the barrel and never really turn into anything. Nano is another name that's been so beaten up off the lows here, down 65% at the low here, bouncing out a little bit, but other than that, hasn't done a whole lot. It gave you a little bit of an intraday trade here a few days ago. It did hit my radar on the alerts. I didn't do anything with Nano. I didn't catch it, but did give you a little bit of an intraday trade if you would have caught some of the breakout, maybe a quick 10, 13% move on that. But In this market, if you get those little pops off the bottoms, those retracement bounces, you got to take profits quick, because look at what happens. They give them up usually pretty quick. Stellar lumens. All right, so we'll do one more Bitcoin deep dive after this, and I'll take a look at a few more names, but I know some of you guys are just joining, and we'll take a look at BTC, because at the end of the day, that's going to be ultimately what drives this market, right? What the Bitcoin price action does. So look at it, the lumens here, just continues to make those series of lower lows. Unfortunately, I was watching here for a potential reversal. It gave you that shot here, had that one wick on higher volume, but just could never confirm, never could break above that overhead exponential resistance, and just continues to drift lower here. Let's go take a look at the 4-hour chart. Any kind of divergence showing up? Not really. I mean, there's a potential for a double bottom here, but other than that, not a whole lot. Neo's waking up? Let's see here. Let's see. No, it's not. Not yet. Oh, wait, not BNB, BTC. All right, let's take a quick look at Bitcoin again. For those of you that were with me earlier, bear with me. These are the two scenarios that I'm looking at here on Bitcoin. And so if you caught my last video, I was highlighting this channel that was rising, which technically was just a bear flag within the broader downtrend that we have been in since the peak in May. And so this is really the intermediate trend to be watching. This is the most important resistance trend to be watching. And Bitcoin couldn't even bounce right into that line here. Ethereum did. It got pretty close, almost exactly. But once we broke that lower support line, we saw the quick sell-off. And that's actually what I was looking for. I don't want to say hoping for, because I never hope for the market to continue lower. But that's kind of what I was hoping for, is a retest of these lows. And now what I'm looking for is a potential double bottom to form with some bounce action, but you got to see some strong volume. Scenario 2 is going to be that climactic washout low. And that would not surprise me, considering the sentiment and some of the market, right, that we've been here, right? We kind of grind lower, grind lower, grind lower, grind lower. At some point, people are going to say, that's it. I can't take it anymore. I'm going to get out. And you're going to see that big washout low on massive volume. It's going to be reminiscent of the type of action that we saw here in February, where we had that climactic selling action. And those are followed by these big counter trend reversals. If we see that here in the next week or two, does that mean that's the end of the bear market? Does that mean it's over? No, not necessarily. It could bounce. And ultimately, the broader picture to keep in mind is going to be the bigger picture trend, right? And until we change this pattern of kind of making lower highs, there's just not going to be any sign that it's over. And most likely, it's not going to be a V bottom unless there's some crazy news or something that is a catalyst. But most likely, it'll just get kind of quiet and almost boring for a little bit, right? You'll get that big low, and then people are going to be like, crypto's dead, and then it's going to take off. Or maybe not. Maybe it's it. Maybe it's really dead, and that's it. We're going back down and never coming back up again. 20,000 was the lifetime high of Bitcoin. I'm kidding, guys. I don't believe that. I do ultimately believe we will see new highs in Bitcoin. Is it going to happen in 2018? Probably not. Probably not. The price rise was not reasonable. No, it wasn't. It was climactic. It was a mania. It was a parabolic rise, absolutely. And following those type of moves, the consolidation, unfortunately, can take longer than we want. But the one thing, the caveat that I would always say to keep in mind, going back to the valuation reset, keep in mind our entire industry is only worth $260 billion. That's a lot of money, but in the big scheme of things, that's not that much. I mean, that's not even worth half of some of the top companies in the world, right? You look at the total market cap for something like Apple, and I get it, it's different comparison because they do products and services and all that. I get it. But the point is, if institutions are going to start to get in and big money's going to come in, something like a $200 billion market cap is tiny. Bitcoin, right? $100 billion market cap is tiny compared to where it could ultimately go if you get a adoption of broader investments markets, which is why I still believe we're going to see new highs ultimately. And the supply scenario, people don't talk about that as much, and ultimately that's probably the best thing, other than obviously the decentralized notion. But Bitcoin supply curve is the most bullish thing it has going for it. I mean, look at this. It's a simple, basic supply demand economics. Total Bitcoin, right? We are already here near the top of the curve. By early 2020s, the majority of the Bitcoin that will ever be mined will be in existence, in circulation. And at that point, when supply starts to really dwindle, new supply, I mean, but demand increases, there's only one thing that can offset that, and that's a price increase, right? And so since its dawn, I mean, the inflation rate has been very steep, but we're at this point now where the curve is starting to shift. And when the curve really starts to get flat, then prices really start to go, right? It's just basic supply demand economics. But this is the most bullish thing that Bitcoin has going for it right now. This limited supply, this 21 million coin, of which there are already over 17 million in circulation. And so you got to keep that in mind, guys. There's a halving coming in 2 years, right? So we got 17 out of 21 there. And that's why I'm thinking, okay, we saw the warm up, right? Does that mean it's going to happen in 18 or even 19? No, but I do believe we're going to ultimately see new prices, new high prices. But nobody cares about that. Everybody wants to know what's going to happen tomorrow. What's going to happen by this time next week? Because prices just keep coming down. What's going on here? Let's see. The hourly's Bitcoin smacking down. I got my alert set here. It's still dropping, making a new daily low here. The low from earlier today was at 60.70. We'll see if we can get that smack down here, and a little bit of a bear flag right into that moving average. Kind of funny how that works. But you know what? Technical analysis doesn't work. So that's just coincidence. All right. Let's see here. What else should we do? There's no more charts to look at. We covered all the charts. How much do you do macro alongside your technicals? So from a macro perspective, I look at the bigger picture, the timing, like we were just looking at, right? But from a day trading perspective, I don't. Honestly, I don't really care, because I'm not going to do the research on a macro because I might be in the trade for a few hours and that's it, or a day or two, right? So I don't really do a whole lot. Now I will factor in some events or project milestones that are coming that could be a catalyst for more people adding or getting excited about a project or the forks or something like that, right? That will certainly come into play. But most of the time, though, it's really just price action to me. And usually I'm trading names that are a little more familiar and more liquid. And so at this point in time, I've already, I'm pretty familiar with all the, the names in the top 50, right? So those are the most liquid names, and that's generally what I'm trading from a volume perspective, right? I'll trade some of these lower names, but I'm not going to do a deep dive research into all of these names because if I like the chart, I'll just trade the chart. Here it goes, free fall mode. Everybody get out of the way. If you're short, hey, congrats. I'm not short. I'm not short. I'm kind of short. I'm not 6 feet. I'm not like 7 feet or anything. All right. Let's see what's going on here. When to buy? I'm not into pick, so I did, like I said, I had a stream earlier with my group, and what I was looking at is a couple scenarios. I haven't bought yet. I'm waiting for the reversal, and for now, it's just one leg down after another. But this little bounce here is actually kind of what I was looking for. Not this bounce, this next leg down, right? It's kind of the mini version of what I was looking for on the daily chart that I just talked about, where we saw the bear flag, and then we saw the bounce, or not the bounce, the leg lower with the divergence on the RSI. I was looking for something like that on the hourlies, and we're starting to see that. So now we want to see some confirmation. We saw the bounce. We saw the next leg down. RSI is starting to say maybe no more. And so that's really what I'm looking for here. So I'm getting close. I haven't bought anything yet, but I'm getting close. And again, this is not like long-term hodl buys, right? Any buys I do today, if any, are going to be trades. That's it. Just trades. Let me see what else we got going on here. Tell us some personal things about yourself anyway. Crypto is dead. Oh, man. Let's see here. Some personal things about myself that you guys already know. I'm a little bit of a space nerd. You guys know I like space stuff, space junk. I used to work in the aerospace industry back in the day. My background here, education-wise, I undergrad, bachelor degree in electrical engineering, and then I got an MBA in finance and investing later on. But I have never done professional, licensed money investing for other people. I'm not a stockbroker. I'm not a licensed money manager. I'm not a CPA or a financial planner of any sort. All of my trading has been relatively self-taught, other than like mentoring with other people and paying for expensive courses and making all the wrong mistakes. But that's really it. So got into crypto in I would say 2014, right? So after I was bored doing stock stuff. I had finished my MBA in 2012, and then I saw the first pump in Bitcoin. Didn't really participate, but then I really started to do some more research on it. And what really got me was the technical aspect, the blockchain side of things, because I'm a nerd, right? And I was like, technology meets money. That's like a match made in heaven. And so that's really what hooked me. And my first foray into the crypto world was building a miner. And so I started mining Litecoin. I did a 6 GPU rig and stayed up all nights for a few nights in a row building that thing, and just was really into it. And then I got it going, and that was cool. And then I realized those miners run freaking hot, and I live where it's normally 100 degrees outside. And so having a miner, basically a heater in your office, just does not make sense. So eventually I just got rid of that damn miner. Sold it. It made me some money though. I mean, it was doing pretty good. I was mining Litecoin primarily at the time. Litecoin was like $4. And then that was it. So I kept the Litecoin and I sold the miner, got my money back, and started investing and trading at that point. And then really got aggressive. And it was still kind of not my primary. I was still doing other stocks and trading and investing stuff, working some startups. But it was really when Ethereum came on the scene, and I discovered that and learned about that, when I was like, wow, like this is different, right? There's Bitcoin, there's Litecoin, but then Ethereum kind of changed the game for me. And of course, that was pre-DAO hack and pre-fork and all that fun stuff. And that was it, man. And it was off to the races after that. Sub 6. Are we sub 6 yet? Let's see on Binance here. This puppy's falling fast. And I like puppies. All right, let's see here. Oh, man, look at that. It's about to break 6. Here we go. Nope. 6K. 6K, ladies and gentlemen. Smash that like button. You know what I should do here in light of this ridiculous, crazy market action that we're seeing here? And since no one cares anymore about crypto, no, I'm not going to give away crypto. I'm going to give away some free courses. So if you've never taken my technical analysis course and you don't know charts, even though you watch my channel and all I talk about is charts, and it cracks me up when people watch my channel and they're like, technical analysis is so stupid and this is like, doesn't work, and why are you wasting your time? And I'm kind of like, well, that's all I talk about. So you're going to really love my channel, because all we do is look at charts. Maybe not all. 89% of the time, we're just talking charts here. So if that's not your thing, I'm I'm sorry, but you're probably not going to like the channel that much. Just saying. Spoiler alert. Charts incoming. Okay, guys. You smash that like button twice, that's it. I'm going to give you 2 copies of the course. Even though they're streaming online, you can log in twice if you want. All right, guys. I'm going to randomly pick. Check this out. I'm going to be very generous today. I'm going to pick 10 people, 10 courses coming out. So let's do this. Drop if you want. You don't have to, and I get it if you don't. But the only way for me to do this is I need an email login. So drop your email if you want the course, and I will do that. And I'm going to randomly pick some names. It's the only way for me to do it. Because I see your usernames, but there's no way for me to. I mean, I can go through the list, I guess, and randomly pick usernames, but I'm not going to do that. All right, here we got some Fast and Furious coming in. I'll tell you guys when to stop. When I got enough names, I'm going to say stop. Otherwise, people will just be posting the rest of the time. I'm only doing 10. Only? That's a lot. $10 in this crazy, sad, red day, which for some reason I'm getting bullish on. All right. Okay, guys. I think we're good. The last few folks that post, that's it. I'm going to pick some names from here. And what'll happen is if you get picked, I'm going to email you. So if you don't see an email from me in the next, say, 2 hours, then you weren't picked. And it was random and it has nothing to do with anything, has nothing to do with your comments or your username or your avatar or how much Bitcoin you have or the color of your Bitcoin or the gender of your Bitcoin or anything. This is a random email pick. All right, we're good. We're good. No more emails. No more emails. All right. I got them. So we broke below. Do we hit 6? We hit $6,005. Come on. I wanted to see the sub 6 there. BTC on Coinbase. I identify with Generation X. What's the next generation? Generation Z? That's kind of cool. I got to admit. Generation Z. All right. 6,025. Not quite the 6K. Did anything break 6K? I'm sure CoinMarketCap says sub 6. 61. No, that's, yeah. Bounce to 10K incoming. Where's John McAfee? I got to check his algorithm. Weren't we supposed to be like at 15K like by next week? Oh, 15K. Come on. He's in the hospital. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. BitMEX. Okay. Yeah, maybe that overshot on BitMEX. Mana, you know what? That's a good point. I was watching Mana, and that guy has been holding up relatively well here. Was pumping pretty good here a few days ago, and now it's just kind of giving this pullback, but looks like maybe it's found a little bit of low. This is one project I do want to see succeed. Like, this is really cool. Like, the whole VR, blockchain-based, you can buy land. I hope people build some cool stuff on this place. I'm really looking forward to that. Man, not too bad. He went to the hospital to cut his thing. Oh, he must really not like his thing, because after he made his bet, he was like, you know what? I'm upping the ante. It's going to hit $1 million. My good grief. Please spare us. Nobody wants to see this. All right. Need to build the Oasis. I know that would be sweet. VR's picking up here. All right. Well, if we get a strong reversal while we're on this live stream, I'm going to abruptly drop and start looking at some names that I had on my list. I was kind of waiting for this. I'm not saying I'm buying, but I'm going to get ready just in case. Got to make a trade or two before I go on vacation. You know, pay for some fancy meals. Popcorn. Who's buying BTC? Someone's buying BTC. Which coins am I eyeing? There's one that I'm eyeing. I'll give you one that I'm looking at here, and I already talked about it earlier, and that's Binance Tether. Potential breakout name. Setting up relatively well. I'm also looking at some counter trend names, but those strategies are a little shorter term, so I'm not going to really give too many of those names out because they may only be like one-day trade or something, right? But I'm looking at this one here just because it's still holding this broader trend. It tried to break out here. It's forming a potential pattern. Now, could this turn into a double top? Yes, absolutely, right? If this breaks through and just continues lower, breaks this neckline, the pattern is done, right? It's nothing to do, in my opinion. But I'm watching it. It's held this intermediate trend here in the near term, the last couple of days here. So I'm seeing if maybe we can get a reversal, and then I'll be looking for a breakout. And if it breaks out here on the dollar pair, next target for me is going to be going into the $20, $22 range. So in and around there, and that's a big target, right? And of course that's a target, and price action ultimately dictates what I end up doing. If I start seeing reversal action here at $19, then I'm getting out of the way. But if it goes to the next high, the prior highs, I mean, dang, 20, 30, 40%, that's massive. A lot of names will do that, though. You guys will be surprised. When the market reverses, the first 2 or 3 days is going to be all those 20, 30% moves off the lows, those crazy oversold names that just pop. Quantstamp, for example. Just smackaroo. See if it can pop there. Bitcoin. For long term, this price or reversal or wait for the reversal. Now, there's nothing long term confirming. Absolutely nothing long term. When I'm talking right now, I'm just talking trading, guys. That's it. Okay, let me see. Somebody shared an article on my Slack about mana. I got to check it out. Thanks for sharing that. Oh, yeah. Talking about the virtual real estate. That's pretty cool, huh? Let me post it here for you guys. Somebody just posted this in the group. Get rid of that. Making a killing in virtual real estate. Man, I was looking at the Mana Marketplace. Some of those places go for ridiculous amounts with nothing built on them. There was a few properties I was looking at right here. I think this is Carnival Land or something on Mana. There was a few there, but even then, like literally, they were going for thousands of dollars. It's like, but it's pretty cool. If you're not familiar with it, check it out. Even if you don't want to buy property or buy Mana, the project's pretty cool. And I guarantee you there will be competitors. There's going to be some competitors to this. There already are, but it's pretty cool. I think they just released their SDK, so hopefully people start making something on there. 60-70. It's trying. Seeing some volume coming in here. It's trying. Got to see that big wick, you know, that big reversal bar. There's no need to catch the exact bottom. Be patient. Lambo wing mirror for... Are we going to see 5K tonight? Ooh. It could, well, not tonight, but yeah. So if you missed the recap earlier, right? And I think I talked about this maybe 2 or 3 videos ago, certainly in my last newsletter. I was talking about the zone that I was watching, and this little zone here is kind of the target, right, for the potential low. in terms of a intermediate longer term low, right? From which maybe we see this type of rally. Does it mean it's the end of the bear? Not necessarily, but you could see a pretty good pump off after that if it goes that low. But that could be the end, right? That could be the ultimate low. But hey, if it reverses here and decides to really start going, then good enough for me. No need to wait. No need to wait for 1,200 BTC. Do I go into Tether when BTC is going down? Yeah, and there's other exchanges where they're not Tether based, so it just depends on your comfort level with the different exchanges. But Kraken, Bitstamp, GDAX, those are actual fiat values, and other exchanges around the world, right, that use yen or euro or Aussie dollars or whatever. And so you don't necessarily have to go to Tether, and I can understand the concern around going into Tether. But obviously, if you're in Binance or some of these others, then that's what you do, is use Tether. It's kind of funny, like Bittrex is like trying to use dollar now. Maybe they're going to unload Tether, but you look at the volumes on the USD, like the dollar, BTC dollar, like nobody cares. Everyone was still trading Tether. There's like some no volume there. Bittrex is low volume anyway. Could really use a time traveler story right now. 4,800 BTC, your buy order sets in. Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that. It's in a bottom at 49.02. Your buy order is going to just barely be missed. Let's see what other names I was looking at here. How's Ontology? Nobody asked about Ontology. Man, nobody cares about crypto. Crypto's dead. I'm kidding, guys. Come on. Come on. We're in this for the long haul, remember? 5-year plan. Ontology. It's, from a relative strength perspective, it'll be interesting to see how this one recovers from the market. Because, I mean, it's held up relatively well. It's just kind of sat flat since May. So it's still here near the highs versus BTC. And so it'll be interesting to see if we can see a recovery here when the market goes and make new highs. Let's go to this guy. BNB, new high ground, new closing high. Shabby. What else we got here? What else? OMG. Oh, price prediction for 2018 December. I haven't really given much thought, to be honest with you. If I had to guess, if you had to say, where are we going to be in December? I would say higher than today. So higher than 6K. How high? Do we make new highs? The picture has changed now that we've broken below this symmetrical pattern, right? The weekly picture has changed and all that. So that really takes off any kind of chance for a new high off the table, in my opinion. It could go higher. I mean, it could go to 10, 12, who knows, right? If there's an ETF approval announcement and it's going to be backed by BTC and people start getting excited, that could be enough to really keep some momentum going. But all things being equal, other than that, I'm not expecting 20K this year. So now that it's broken below this line, that's off the table, in my opinion. What's your trading style? Following the green or anticipating the red? That's a good question. I tend to buy. So here's the thing. I was sharing it with somebody earlier. There's 4 steps to the trading strategies, right? And there's different strategies. There's literally hundreds, maybe thousands of strategies you can employ, but they all kind of fall within a few groups, right? There's trend following strategies. There's breakout strategies. There's counter trend strategies, and obviously there's the quick scalping, the 1 hour, 1 minute, 5 minute stuff. And if you're doing that and you can automate it, I would recommend just using a bot for those time frames. But that being said, Obviously, my favorite strategy is to trade breakouts in an uptrend. I mean, those are the most profitable, the easiest ones to play. I mean, look at something like this. Like it's textbook, right? I mean, you see a strong uptrend, reversal, we got this base, ascending triangle, moving averages are crossed over, you get the big volume breakouts. That's an easy trade to take. I mean, that's a very high probability, low risk trade. You get here, you put your stops, you ride the trend. But you can only really do that in trending markets, right? And so you have to have some different tools to adjust. And so even in this market, which I primarily trade signals off of the 4-hour chart. So when I look for setups and even my triggers, most of the time, not always, most of the time, I'm trading based on 4-hour charts. I mean, I'll take a look at the daily because the dominant trend absolutely matters, but I'll generally look at 4-hour charts and then I'll take my trades on the 1 hours. And my style is predominantly day to swing, right? So I'll be in a trade for a day, half a day, a couple of days or something, and depending on the target, and go from there. And you just have to in this market. Now, in a stronger bull, the swing trading could be longer, and ideally, you're going to make more if you can hold longer and ride the bigger moves higher, right? But that's not our market, so you can't expect that, and so you got to go with a little bit smaller time frame. And so that's my style. Now, what I would recommend is there's two ways to find entries. On these type of moves, counter trend moves, I don't buy the red. I wait for confirmation because counter trend moves, for one, are high risk, low probability trades anyway. So you can't expect to hit a lot of home runs on the counter trend moves. These are high risk. You get in, you get out, and or if you even play them at all, right? I mean, the best thing to do is just not play them at all and wait for the trend to change and just go with the trend. But there are some opportunities when things line up and we hit extremes, kind of like we're doing now. Then I will take some counter trend trades. But I'm just going to wait for confirmation. I'm not going to look at buying the red or scaling in along the way down because the momentum is strong to the downside and you're just bottom picking at that point. You're guessing. Yeah, RSI is oversold, but think about it. You would have bought here. RSI was oversold. You're wrong. You would have bought here. You're wrong. You would have bought here. You're wrong. You would have bought here. You're wrong. Right? It's just kind of hard to say. So you're better off just waiting for that. Now, that being said, right, after a few of those legs down and RSI starts to diverge and the things start to set up, then you're getting close. And it just depends on your risk tolerance. If you're willing to give it 4 or 5% to the downside, then okay, right, scale in here. Or you could just wait for some of this type of action, right? The big volume, reversal off the high. So here's a good example. This could happen during the live stream. We're in a 30-minute bar, 1-hour charts diverging. We've seen the lower lows, lower low, lower low. We just retested after the break of this bear flag. Here we are, slightly undercutting, and now volume's coming in on the buy side. Look at that. If this candle closes above 61.90, man, that's a bullish engulfing candle on the 30-minute chart. That's going to look pretty positive. People that are short are going to get a little scared. You can see a little bit of a rally after that. If you want to preempt it and say, that's it, I think we're in, there's nothing wrong with that. But your lows got to be, your stops got to be really tight. Because if you're wrong, it's okay. Just get out of the way and wait for the next one. So your stop needs to be like just below this bar, which is less than 1%, right? So depending on your strategy, that may be acceptable. So it just depends. I certainly wouldn't be against picking some up here just because I think odds favor we're going to bounce. But who knows, right? Could get that panic washout. Mt. Gox trustee could say, I'm not allowed to sell anymore. Watch this. And sell one last load. I'm kidding. That probably won't happen, but do I think we'll see below 5K? So my target zone is around 5K. Below 5K is absolutely possible, but I think the low would be like 4,800, 4,900. Let's see what else we got here. Sorry, I'm reading the comments. Sold your Mercedes and bought it 17.8. Now you've lost everything. I'm sorry to hear that. That's a bummer. Look on the bright side. Automobiles are depreciating assets. So in 10 years, your Bitcoin will probably be worth more than that Mercedes would be in 10 years. That's it. That's the only bright side. Sorry. Tough gig. Mempool is picking up. Panic sell. That's right. Everyone's moving off the hardware wallets. Going, I can't take it anymore. Get me out. How do I pick coins to trade? Good question. And that is the question, right? I mean, think about it. There's 1,602 cryptocurrencies on CoinMarketCap. And we know most of those are crap. And most people only trade like maybe the top 100, 200 names or something. But even then, that's a lot of names. So how do you pick them? And there's a couple of things. One, you have to know what strategy you're looking for. So if I'm doing counter trend strategies, then I'm looking for names that are hitting 3-month lows, 1-month lows, new all-time lows. Then I'm looking for R-side divergences, and I'm looking for those setups, right? So you always want to match the name with the setup. If you're looking for breakout names, if you're looking for, where's a strong uptrend, then you don't want to buy those names that are pulling back, right? If the whole market's strong and moving higher, you want to buy those trending names, the names that are breaking higher, the ones that were moved first, because that's going to give you the most momentum. So you have to apply it to the strategy. There's a couple of screens that you can use for free on TradingView. Once you know what you're looking for, then you can do that. I use it from time to time, but you have to already kind of know what you want to see, and then so you can go to that screener. Cryptocurrency signal finder, and it's all this is really just a filter, right? So you can filter on oscillators, on trends, and this and that. You can filter 3-month low, all-time lows, EMAs. You can put your own indicators in here and kind of say, do some algorithm, some math here, and then filter out names. And I do that, right? I'll do that from time to time, and I'll narrow down the list to the handful of names that I'm going for, and then I'll go look at the charts. Alternatively, you can use alert signals. I have worked with the team. We have developed that. It's available, and there's a handful of different indicators that I use here to do that for us. It automates the search, the crypto search. And so all the names that are popping up, the strong names are showing up on this list here, right? So depending on what I'm looking at, if I'm doing Ichimoku trades, I'm looking at cloud entries right now is what you want to be looking for, right? Because those are the names that are bouncing into support resistance on the move. Oversold long-term names, I find power pivots in this environment are good names because those are the first names that start to turn around. So ARC, Dash, BTC, BAT, Ripples, flashing names yesterday, right? So those are some of the names. So that's how I do it, right? Because it's impossible to look at every chart every time, every day. So ARC was showing some power pivot moves off the low. So that's telling me that this name's starting to flatten out here. It goes on the watch list. And so depending on the strategy I'm looking for, if this is a trend reversal strategy, then I'm looking for this bottom reversal pattern. I may put a conditional buy or a breakout. I'm seeing some bullish divergence here. So that's how I do it, right? I'll kind of use the tools first, but there's a lot of ways to do it. But ultimately, I mean, I'm looking at the charts pretty often, and I have kind of my favorite names anyway, and build watch lists regularly and look for names to trade for the day or for the week if there's trades to be made. And for the most part, the last couple of weeks, there haven't been a whole lot of trades to be made. What else is on this list here? Let's see. R. What's this? KuCoin. Let's go check it out. It's flashing some alerts here. Some power pivots. My goodness, look at those wicks. Yep, that's a low volume name. Ethereum Classic was popping up. Particle. Z Classic. Let me see what else here. Let's find some other stronger names here. Let's see what moved yesterday. Sheesh. That's a name from yesteryear. Basic attention. We already know that one. Fun. We know that. That was a Palm Beach pump. Wax, Ethereum Classic, KCS, Nano. We saw Nano moving yesterday. So there's a handful of names there. So I'll use those. And when I find those alerts, then I'll look for retracement signals or retracement entries, excuse me, and pullbacks and stuff like that. And, you know, and here's another thing. When it comes to trading, you don't necessarily need to trade everything all the time, right? Some people may have a strategy that they only look for one or two types of setups, and all they trade is Bitcoin and Ethereum, and that's it. They just trade, you know, the big three, or they just trade Bitcoin Cash. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's some professional traders I know that literally will trade one or two strategy types, and they only trade like two markets, right? They'll trade like the euro, dollar, and, you know, gold or something, and that's it, right? And they can make a living doing that because they get very good at just one or two setups, and they just don't have to waste mental energy looking for all the different types of patterns and setups, and you kind of narrow focus in. And the flip side of that is you may let a lot of them go because they may not be lined up to your strategy or your system, but that's okay because the ones that work, I mean, you're going to be comfortable with because you're getting good at one specific strategy. So that's what I recommend. I mean, you know, you don't need like 50 indicators on your charts. You don't need all that stuff. Come up with one or two that you're comfortable with, and then go with that and get good at that for a little while. I mean, another popular one is Ichimoku, right? So you can find strategies around trading Ichimoku. And when the signals line up on your chart, then you're trading that. And if they don't, then you don't care what else is happening. And the rest of the market, other people might find a signal here and trade on a bounce. But if you're just trading Ichimoku, you're saying there's nothing to do, right? And so there's just different ways to do it. And you got to kind of have to pick which way you like, which is the one you want to go with. So speaking of Ichimoku, I was looking at that Binance trade. And here's another thing to note, right? For those of you that are the cloud followers here, that lower trend line that I drew on the other chart, look at that. It's lining up very closely to the Kijun-sen line, which is a support zone, as well as the top of the cloud, which is a support zone on this pullback. And so ideally, this is where it's going to bounce from, right? This is where it needs to hold. Now, it's not a buy signal yet, but that's what you're looking at when you're looking at support and resistance. And so if you're following this system, then you might be putting in some buy orders here with the stop just below, or you might wait for a reversal. But, you know, there's different views, different points of views. BNB crossing 1550. Obviously, I had an alert on that. Do we break the all-time high this year? What do you think? No, I don't think so. Is it safe to connect to an exchange in TradingView? You know, that's a really handy tool, but same with CoinGee. Like, you can do it here too. But I just don't trust the APIs, and a lot of people do. I mean, I'm not saying don't. I just don't personally. I'd rather just go directly into the exchange and not trade from the chart. I just use it for charting. Oh, what else here? A Bitcoin ETF would maybe send prices to new highs, but normal market conditions, barring any kind of unexpected, super bullish, surprising news, I wouldn't expect a new high. But I think we'll finish higher than 6K. 20K, yeah, you're asking for a lot. Hey, look on the bright side. You buy more Bitcoin before it goes back to 20K. You just got to sell your ramens, stop eating for 6 months, just drink nothing but water, and buy Bitcoin. All right. Do I ever buy at all-time highs like BNB? Yeah, I do. On a breakout strategy. But buying ETH, I like ETH here. Let's go back. Buying ETH on a dip would be a good idea. So any name right now buying on a dip is risky, right? It's preemptive because you're not sure if that's the dip. Is that the end of the dip? I mean, it's always guesswork until you see confirmation. So, one, it depends on your time frame, and two, it depends on what's your strategy. Like if me, I'm just trading. I'm not buying on this dip yet because I'm going to wait until it tells me it's done. But do I think we're close? I do from a time perspective. But from a price perspective, who knows, right? It could dip for another hour or two and dip another $50-$100. Like, it's kind of hard to say. I think from a time perspective, I think we're close. I think we'll see a pretty decent bounce here probably by today or tomorrow. But it's just a matter of how low do we go first, right? You are seeing some pretty positive divergence here, right? If this thing continues lower on the hourlies, at least, you're seeing that. And this is starting to feel a little climactic, a little washoutish. But on the 4 hour, is it there yet? Not really. I mean, we could see way more volume still. So it's kind of hard to say here. The whole catching the falling knife, right? If we were in a strong uptrend, a bull market, a macro bull market, and this was a small correction within that bull market, I personally would feel a lot more comfortable buying the falling knife, right? Because you're buying into a retracement. But we're in a bear market, and that's a lot more dangerous to do in a bear market, right? Because the momentum is clearly to the downside, and there's no telling like how low it goes before the sellers are exhausted. And so it's just a little bit more dangerous to buy the dips in the bear markets. If you're trending higher, buying the dips, it makes a little bit more sense. 59, let's go see BTC here. Guys, moving fast here. There it is. There it is. We hit a low of $6,001 on Coinbase. Free fall. There it is. Binance. Let me turn off this indicator here for you guys. Oh, man, that's the free fall. 59.50. 58 incoming. Wow. Wow. Buy the dip. Kidding. That's why you don't want to buy the dip yet. See, I know some of you guys are buying the dip here and here and here. I know you were. And you may be fine if you're just kind of like step away from the screen and come back tomorrow. But if you're watching, you're going, oh, crap. What did I do? Why did I buy that dip? All right, let's get it over with. That's what I say. That's exactly what I say. I'm like, come on, just pull the Band-Aid off already. Let's do it. 59.50. Here, I gotta go check on my Slack side here real quick. Check out my group. I know some of you guys are on this call. Thanks for being here. Hit that like button, ladies and gentlemen. We are watching the collapse real time. Why is it that I'm always live streaming when you guys are watching this crazy action happen? It's because we're family. Thank you for being here. Even though, you know how I know we're family? All the infighting. All the backbiting and comments. Only families do that. Damn, Tone won the bet. That really sucks. Sub 6. Okay, now that it's over, we're good. 59, 20, 30. Oh, man, oh, man. 5,000. Ladies and gentlemen, the lowest price of the year is officially here. What was the low in February? Wasn't it like 59.60 or something like that? Let's see here. Absolute low. I remember that happened like at 3 a.m. I was watching that thing and caught it live. Not on live stream. I mean, I was trading it. We hit 6,000. I thought we went to 59 on GDAX in February. Let me see here. On GDAX, we hit 58.73. Pretty close. Thank you for posting that. Yeah. The dump begins. The dump begins. The dump began last night. It's a pretty big red candle on the daily. What's that? Down 10% now. Most of the names are getting smacked. Let's go check it out. 18% on EOS. IOTA down 17%. Ethereum Classic down 17. Bitcoin down 20. Bitcoin Private down 26%. Wait a minute. Wasn't Bitcoin Private supposed to be like the #1 name by the end of the year or something? No place to hide except for Gamecoin. 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 Doesn't trade on any of the exchanges that I like to trade on. Well, back to the charts. Well, guys, there's an old saying. I'd rather be out of a market wishing I was in than in a market wishing I was out. I'm glad I'm not in the market yet. But hey, I mean, I didn't sell all of my long-term holds, so I'm with you guys. I still have some BTC, some other stuff. The 2-hour RSI can't go any lower. It can't go lower, but it can stay low for a long time. That's the thing, right? RSI can hang out at the low levels for longer than you think. It's trying to bounce here. I know what's going to happen next. All you guys are going to come out and say, yep, I bought BTC sub 6K. I'm a genius. It's okay. Let's let it bounce here. Let's see what happens. That's a 5-minute candle, by the way. FinX was down for a minute. Ooh. They still do quite a bit of volume. It's back online. Smash those like buttons, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody's going to say, I told you so. You know, there's a difference between traders and strategy and technical analysts, right? And I pride myself in being a technical analyst, no doubt. But I trade. And I promise you, they're two different things. Two totally different things. Technical analysis, honestly, is like step 1 when you're learning how to trade. That's like the fundamentals. You got to know how to read the charts and look for patterns and be able to understand what technical indicators mean when they do certain things in certain market environments and all that. And so it's always interesting when you see these people who don't really trade and they're just like, I told you so, and this and that, and get out of the way. And it's like, you know, it's a lot. It's kind of like watching the game on Saturday and yelling at the coach for being stupid and not making the right play. You know what I mean? It's a whole nother ball game when you actually got money on the line, when you got a trade in place, when the emotions kick in, when you have capital at risk. It's a whole nother ball game when you make an entry and the trade goes against you and suddenly you're underwater and you're like, do I sell? Do I write it out? Do I wait for it to hit my stop? That's a whole nother thing. And so unless you've done that and unless you're doing that successfully, you know, it's kind of easy to be the sideline coach there and say, yeah, this coach is so stupid. Should have put him in the game, man. Why'd you take him out? I'm just saying. Backseat drivers. Plus, at the end of the day, when it comes to technical analysis, which is funny, it's like there's technical analysis, but at the end of the day, it's like, what strategy are you using, right? There's so many different strategies. Like some analysis may not matter one bit for some strategies, and other analysis is more useful for other strategies. And I'm only playing moving averages, and I'm only playing price action. I mean, there's some strategies where you don't even need indicators, right? You can just strictly trade based on price action bars and candles and stuff. And there's a lot of people that do that. So it's very relative to your own style and what you're doing. All right, 59.77. That's it. That's the bottom. We're done. I'm kidding. Maybe, though. Maybe. Man, it's a good thing I got some lunch today. Normally I do these live streams pre-lunch, and by the time I'm done, I'm like starving and I need some coffee, but I got some lunch, so hopefully this doesn't turn into another epic multi-hour live stream. But we have been going for some time, so don't necessarily want to keep you guys around. I'm just starting to banter now. It is a community. I really appreciate you guys being here. And, and that's the thing with crypto. I mean, yeah, I got some friends that trade crypto and invest and all that, but it's still a relatively small community. And even then with my friends, it's not like we're talking regularly and all that stuff. And so it's kind of nice to have a place to talk and to meet with other people, and even if it's just online, right? And especially trading, because trading can get pretty lonely. If you're trading consistently or regularly, or you're learning to trade, I highly recommend joining a group or even a free forum or something, right? And it's a double-edged sword, right? It's kind of like going on Reddit. It's like, okay, you don't know if it's some idiot in his basement that doesn't know what he's talking about posting, or if it's somebody who's really good at what they're doing, right? So I get that, but just having other people to share ideas with and all that is very valuable. And after a while, you can tell, once you've been in the community long enough, you can tell who knows what they're talking about and who doesn't, and it's okay. But I would recommend that. It's certainly worthwhile because when you're trading by yourself, it can get lonely, and you can second guess certain price action, or if you're sharing ideas with other people and kind of confirming what you're seeing, and it just goes a lot longer. It's just way better. The small community, and with this dump, it's getting even smaller. It absolutely is. This whole recent pullback, right, that we've seen. I mean, I've seen it, and other folks in YouTube have seen it, right? The channel views are lower, subscriber rate is dropping, and that's not unusual considering during the height of the mania, I was getting friends and relatives call me who never wanted to talk about investing in anything, and they were asking me about dropping large amounts of money in crypto, and how do I do that? How do I get started? And what do you think I should buy here? And and it was all over every social media platform and BitConnect and all this junk, and you couldn't get away from it, right? And it was every day I would read either Wall Street Journal or one of the major news publications that cover financial stuff, and almost every day in November, December, there was an article on Bitcoin, on crypto, on something. So naturally, it's going to get attention, and it's going to just kind of create a cycle. But then people were in it because the prices were moving so fast, and now that it's the correction and the grind lower, yeah, there's a lot of loss of interest. There's the influx of new people coming in is just not there, right? And a lot of the folks left are really people that are here because they were around in 17 and 16, and it's just the way it is. I've seen it in other markets that I've traded, right? I saw it in the precious metals pump in the mid early 2000s, and that was a huge market. And same thing, CNBC every single day, a story on gold and a story on vaults and a story on this and a story on that. And I was like, hey, ride the wave. But after it ended, a lot of people left the scene and stopped trading and stopped investing, and it is what it is, right? And then on to the next one. It's just normal market psychology. 6,000. That's it. That's the low. Bitcoin let Tone win his bet, and it's off to the races. It's a pretty good wick on that 1 hour. See if it can hold. Real estate, yep. Saw the same thing happen in real estate in between 26, 28 before the crash. And then the opposite happened, right? We were looking at condos here in Arizona in 2011. Check this out. For $23,000. I was like, how many of these could we buy? I mean, people were selling houses for less than it cost to build them. It was like ridiculous. You could buy a house for $50,000 and rent it out for $800 a month. And it was like, that didn't last. That was like for maybe 3 or 4 months, but still, like, holy smokes, right? And so we went the opposite extreme. You went from one extreme to the other and overshot to the downside. And you see it everywhere. It happens. Kind of normal market behavior. Will it get back to 15K again? I personally believe it will. Will it get back there next month? Probably not. Will it get back there this year? Maybe, but I don't know. Great time to invest in BitConnect. Man, what a story that was, huh? Back at 6K. Yeah, volume's starting to pump there. You know, last summer too, same thing, right? June, July, you're right. It was a little bit of a bear. But we were in the middle of a bigger trend, though. That was the difference. I mean, we had started the big bull markets. I mean, we started earlier, but the big run really started in March, April last year. And going into May, we had the big pump. And then after consensus, we had the dump. And you can see going into June and then July. I remember I was on vacation during that July dump too. And we saw that happen. Then the next rally. And then we went into September. And then we started seeing the, here it is, the FUD and the Jamie Dimon and the China banning. And then we had that nice big climactic washout low right at 3,000. Think about that, guys. We were at $3,000 last September. It's not that long ago. But it was different, right? We were within a broader macro uptrend. The weekly charts were looking good, the daily. And this one, we're clearly in a broader macro downtrend. It's a little bit different scenario. Okay. 4,800 is the bottom, maybe. So let's do the math there, right? If 4,800 was the bottom, and so here's a couple scenarios. This is why I was looking at that, right? So if you just do a strict Fibonacci retracement analysis, and there's a lot of ways to do it, and I talked about the mining cost. I was looking at this, where was it? Yeah, this low right here as kind of my swing low, right? This March of 17, where in my opinion, the strong bull really started. Officially, you can say the bull started back in 2016 or the 15 low, and we'll do that. We'll take that view right now, but let's do this first. And if you say those were the major pivots, right? This low here around $900 to the high close to 20. And if you take that point of view, now you never like to see a market retrace that deep, but obviously the 618 and the other ones didn't hold. So the next level down, and really, in my opinion, kind of the last level of defense, if this is going to remain, it bounce off there strongly, then it's that 786 level, which just lines up closely to 4,900, 4,960 or whatever, which is close to that 5K. Now, if you want to take the different point of view and say, nah, this market didn't really start, the stealth bull, you got to retrace the entire move from 200 to 20,000. it's not that much of a difference because you're using a logarithmic scale. So then at that point, you're saying, okay, 4,500 is the low, but at the end of the day, it's still this base that I'm looking at and not this base, right? So using that analysis, that's how I was getting to that. Now, if you look at price for mining and all that other stuff, it kind of supports the case for a 5K low, but it's not to say that it wouldn't overshoot to the downside temporarily, but it could. Let's see here. Litecoin. Any action in Litecoin? Litecoin. $82 Litecoin. Charlie Lee. You're going to see a big old tweet tomorrow by Charlie Lee. I bought all my Litecoin back at $82. I'm back in. I changed my mind. I don't care about holding too much Litecoin. I'm going to buy it all. Wouldn't that be something? Oh, man. What else? Well, guys, monthly charts still looking good. Let's go check it out. The monthly charts. Not this one. That's the Litecoin monthly. BTC USD monthly. Honestly, at that point, I don't really watch the charts from that perspective. Monthly, that's a long time. But yeah, look at that. I mean, it's if you're looking at the monthly, you're saying, hey, this is not that bad actually. Volume's declining on lower and lower volume every month, and it's a little bit of a bull flag. Party time. We'll see. We will see. Crypto just moves so fast, like daily's good enough for me. Daily and weeklies. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we saw sub 6K just a little while ago. If you missed it, we saw it live. You probably saw it live because you were here. Now, we want to know if this is going to bounce. Was that the low? Or are we going to see that washout low and it really gets scary here over the next day or two? That's going to be real interesting. Don't go. I kind of have to. I gotta take a little bio break here. TMI. Let's see what else we got going on here. I'm going to do a couple more cycle through real quick, and then we will call it a day. BCH. What's going on there? One base supposed to be like the ultimate outperforming Bitcoin every time. Suppose not. BCH on the BTC. It's right back here to the May low. How's it looking on the price? Where's my I don't want to see it on Kraken. Bitstamp. I don't think it trades a lot of volume on Bitstamp, but $734. Smacking down. Breaking support like nothing. Yeah, once they had that fork and that whole run up into that, it just gave up the whole move. But in all fairness, right? Didn't everything? Everything gave up the April move and some. Technically, it hasn't gone lower than April, so it's done better. Enigma. Yeah, it's holding up very nicely versus BTC here on the daily. Seeing some strong action here. Looking pretty good here. Yeah, this was on my, this one hit the alerts the other day on my list. I didn't trade it, but was watching for a potential secondary entry. Just the thing is, the last couple of days, there was a couple of good setups like this, but I didn't take any because BTC and ETH were shaping up to potentially drop lower. And until I saw some upside confirmation, I didn't really want to go with anything. So sometimes you just got to let those pass. I didn't do BAT. I didn't do ETC. Man, I'm missing out. FOMO's kicking in here. It's okay. It's all good. What else was I going to look at here? Walton. Walton's trying to bounce off the lows here, but maybe makes a higher low on this 4 hour. It's already making a higher low. Not bad. not too shabby there versus BTC. And honestly, I mean, a lot of these names, guys, versus BTC, I'm leaning in favor of alts if we get a counter trend rally on this bear, just because so many of these alts have really taken it hard versus BTC, that I'm thinking this is where we'll see some outperformance when BTC bounces and gives us a little counter trend rally, which according to my last video is going to be in July. It's funny how, well, not funny, but it's interesting how saying stuff like that really pisses people off. Do I ever trade in the ETH pair? You know, sometimes, and even the BNB pair, but primarily it's BTC, and the only time I'll ever do some of the other ones is when they're looking like this versus Bitcoin. And the volume has to be there, which it is for some names, right? Like ETH NIA or ETH ICX or something. But like if ETH is outperforming BTC like this and it's looking strong, BNB does this too on Binance. So when you see another coin, like a core coin doing something like that where they have trading pairs, a lot of trading pairs against it, then I'll look at those setups from that angle. And for example, just in the last 2 weeks, the few trades that I did do, they were ETH just because it was outperforming a little bit. But most of the time I don't. And even lately, I haven't done even BTC pairs. I've been mostly just doing the handful of Tether pairs that are available. Did a few BTC pairs, but it's been mostly the Tether pairs. And on Binance, and it varies by exchange, but on Binance, it's these guys, right? And they tend to trade pretty decent volume, most of them. So it's enough to trade on, right? So EOS and ICX and IOTA, and it's kind of nice to give you this option. What was that? So I'll do that. And Bittrex has a few, but even a lot of these, even though they have USD pairs on Bittrex, the volume is just not good. You look at the daily or the hourlies, and it's choppy and squared looking, and that just tells you there's no volume in these names. So no point in trading those. Look at that. That's Decred USD Tether, but look how choppy that is. There's no volume. So you can't use that. You might as well go with the BTC pair on those. And same with Bitfinex. Bitfinex has a lot of USD pairs. Well, they call it USD on Bitfinex. It's kind of funny. But a lot of these, same thing, right? Look at that. There's no volume. Like, friggin' just delist it. Nobody wants to trade the USD pair of this thing. Right, so they gotta look liquid like this. But anyway, BTC can't go to zero. Okay, guys. Well, I appreciate everybody being here. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this stream. I didn't think it'd be this exciting. I thought it was just going to be a kind of a normal live market update while we were watching the charts real time. As it progressed, BTC decided to drop some more. I've not made anything, and I've not traded anything here today or even the last couple of days, but I am gearing up. I think we're due for a little bit of a bounce here. Maybe it happens today. Maybe it happens tomorrow. We'll see what happens here on the daily. Really, that's the kind of the big picture that I'm watching. The daily has had this big run lower. Is it over yet? There's no way to tell, right? There's no confirmation, but I'm looking ahead and seeing potentially new lower low, bullish divergence on the RSI. I talked about that, saying potentially a double bottom or that climactic washout low. And so that's what I'm looking out for. I'm paying attention to. I'm watching a handful of names because if BTC does that, yeah, I may take some entries in BTC, but that's not going to really be the primary trade. The primary trade will probably be some of the other alts that I'm keeping an eye on. And so that's where I'm going to be heading. And I'll be heading to vacation too. So hopefully happens here soon. If not, I'll be kicking back somewhere on a beach, enjoying, and maybe peeking at the charts once in a while. So Thanks for being here, everybody. I appreciate the likes, the subscribes, the smashing. If you guys want to learn more, there's more information at nodeinvestor.com. You can find out about my training tutorials. Oh, yeah. Speaking of the tutorials, I gave away 10 courses. So you will get an email from me in the next hour if you were one of the winners for today's random drawing. So 10 free technical analysis courses will be going out. I will let you know. And then what will happen is when I set up your account, you'll get an auto-generated email with your login information, and you can go from there. So I hope you enjoy. Hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. Maybe I'll be on tomorrow, depending on what the market does. But until next time, take care, everybody.